Literacy intervention, and specifically intervention for students with dyslexia, has sparked much debate as to who is best equipped to support these learners. Traditionally, literacy specialists and remedial therapists and special education teachers have been tasked with supporting these learners. However, around 20 years ago, ASHA released a position statement, and in this position statement, they stated that SLPs should be involved in the intervention with learners with literacy difficulties and dyslexia because of their specific knowledge of language, language disorders, and phonology. So since that position statement was released, there have been many studies that have discussed the role of the SLP with these children. Despite all of this research, many SLPs don't feel equipped to assist learners with literacy difficulties and dyslexia. Also, many SLPs don't even know that dyslexia falls within our scope of practice. And this is not surprising, considering that the amount of time and coursework dedicated to literacy training in SLP programs is variable and limited. Despite this lack of training, and given our specific knowledge of language and language disorders and phonology, as SLPs, we really should embrace the role that we have in the lives of students with literacy difficulties and dyslexia. Before we can understand the nature of literacy difficulties and dyslexia, we first need to understand how the reading brain works in typically developing children. So, what exactly does reading involve? Before I dive in, I want to share a story with you. And this story has been adapted from Calabash.courses' story that she told in her presentation on advocating for reading success in learners with speech sound disorders. Calabash.courses is a school-based SLP in the United States, and she's involved in a lot of reading research, and specifically research on how speech sound disorders and language disorders influence literacy development. In her story, she talks about a grandfather and a grandson. The grandfather was born and raised in Germany during a time when it was common for young men not to complete their schooling. So the grandfather went to school up until about the 3rd grade, and he then immigrated to the US. He has been living there for the last 50 years or so. His first language is German, and he now speaks English too. The grandson was born and raised in the US, and he speaks fluent English. And the grandson is currently in the 5th grade. So the grandfather comes across an old German text, and he's reminded of a time when he was younger, when his mother used to read him stories from that text. And so he approaches his grandson and he asks him if he wouldn't mind reading some of the stories to him, because he doesn't have literacy skills in German. And so the grandson says to him, "But I don't have literacy skills in German either." And the grandfather says, "But please, can we just try? Can we just sound out the words on the page and let's see how it goes?" And so the grandson does as he is asked, and he tries his best to sound out all the words on the page, and surprisingly the grandfather is able to understand what his grandson is saying. And the grandfather is very, very happy and nostalgic, and it just reminds him of when his mother used to read those stories to him. So in this example, or in this story, who is actually doing the reading? Some might say it's the grandson, and some might say it's both of them. In actual fact, it's neither of them. For reading to occur, we actually need a combination of both skills.